To understand mental and physical suffering, we need to understand its root cause and not just the effects, which are the symptoms. Whether it is mental suffering like depression, anxiety, psychosis, compulsive disorders and such, or it is physical suffering such as cancer and sickness and disease, there is ultimately one underlying cause. All mental disease manifests as physical disease eventually, because confusion within the mind creates confusion within the body system. Cancers are but cells in confusion attacking their host, just as a mental disease are thoughts created from confusion attacking their host. The only solution that will undo confusion is knowledge. Not intellectual knowledge that we have tried to teach ourselves, but knowledge that is within us because it is the knowledge of who we are, the knowledge of who we were created to be. All confusion arises from the loss of this knowledge within us. The world has become a very confusing environment we live in, and when our lives lose meaning to us because of some trauma of some sort, this confusion within our minds causes our suffering. Trauma can be the loss of work, the loss of someone close, the loss of power, the loss of freedom, the loss of seeing any hope in the future. There are many ways trauma can affect us. It does not have to be violent in nature. It can be something small, but whatever it is, it produces the same effect. Fear is just as terrifying within a dream that is not real and therefore never happened, as it is when experienced in the world. The mind sees no difference within a dream or within the reality of the world. The thoughts are just as powerful in both scenarios. Most people try and understand pain and suffering by studying other people's opinions and other people's studies. Studies made in schools that study data and known facts. Yet to truly understand suffering, one must literally go into hell, because hell is the home of suffering. But hell is not a place, but it is a state of mind. To go into hell and return is to return with a knowing that needs no validation from others and requires no certification. One who has been into hell and returned has literally faced the devil within. No amount of scientific study can compare to experience. Scientific study begins with the notion of not knowing, while experience is knowing. All suffering, including mental and psychological disorders, as well as physical pain and sickness, have their roots and cause within our thoughts. Thoughts are creations of the mind. When our minds are in fear, suffering under anxiety, or are under stress and confusion, these thoughts manifest mentally as psychological disorders, and finally as physical disorders, such as sickness, disease, and finally pain. We ultimately suffer only from our own thoughts. Although it may seem that someone or something outside of us is the cause of our suffering and pain, it is always our own thoughts that cause us to suffer. The thoughts we use to defend ourselves are the very attack thoughts we project onto others. This reveals a profound truth. All defenses and all attacks stem from the same source, fear within our minds, which is literally the belief in our powerlessness. This is true not just at a personal level, but also at a global level. We only defend ourselves because we feel weak and threatened, and we attack out of our need to defend ourselves, and so all attack likewise stems from powerlessness. The strong simply have no need for attack or defense. only weakness does. The fearful thoughts we hold in our minds are the sole cause of suffering. Stress is but the fear of failure and the fear of loss, the loss of security, the loss of something or someone, the loss of money, which is the loss of power, the loss of our identity, as well as the fear of the loss of life itself. Living in such a state is mental hell, and our thoughts manifest as physical sickness and pain. When we let go of these thoughts, our minds return to their natural peaceful state, and our suffering simply stops. Thoughts never truly leave their source. They remain in the mind that created them. Thus, both thoughts of defense and thoughts of attack are our fearful judgments we have chosen to keep alive within us, that we project onto others and the world, yet they always remain within us, eating away at our peace. These judgments cause anger and hate and eventually sickness. At a global level, they are the cause of war. Our bodies, as amazing as they are more clearly understood when they are seen as pain bodies. They are designed to experience and express levels of pain. Even what we perceive as bodily pleasure is but a lesser form of pain. This is why pain can sometimes transform into pleasure, and pleasure can become a pain. Scientific studies show that pleasure and pain register in the same place within our brains. Depending upon the level of pressure involved, we experience either pleasure or we experience pain. Just as a gentle caress is experienced as pleasure, whilst adding more pressure it soon becomes intolerable. Pain to the mind is confusion, whilst pleasure to the mind is delightful. Yet the mind cannot bear confusion, because its natural state of being is peace, which comes from complete understanding, which is from knowledge, being one with the mind of creation and the mind of our Creator. The mind is always seeking for understanding and for integration. It is always seeking for wholeness and completeness. Wholeness is to be wholesome, and what is wholesome is without sickness. We believe we all have separated minds, all functioning apart from each other. Yet our minds are connected to a universal mind, which is unified because of its oneness, which means it is a wholeness. Ultimately, it is the mind of the Creator, our own Creator. The mind tries to understand pain by projecting its confusion outwards onto others through our thoughts and our judgments. Thereby our judgments become the reasons that we have asked to see in the world, as an answer for the pain that we do not understand within ourselves. Yet the thoughts remain within our minds, even though the mind has tried to rid itself of their meaning. When we look at someone with hatred or fear or anger, we are seeing them as if they are deserving of our hatred, our fear and our anger. But what we are actually doing is we have projected onto them through the dark veils of illusion our own hate, our own fear and our own anger. Because thoughts do never leave the mind, they remain forever where they were made. We may think we have got rid of these emotions and these thoughts about ourselves, but all we have done is push them further underground, thereby obscuring their presence even further, and so they remain hidden in secrecy within us, shrouded in darkness. So we suffer our thoughts while believing that the cause of suffering is outside of us. In doing so, we create the world we perceive, a world shaped by the thoughts we project onto it. When we are not aware that we are not our bodies, and we are not aware that we are not our thoughts, we can only but fail to recognize this dynamic. We remain unaware that the world we see is a reflection of the thoughts we have chosen to keep and harbor within ourselves. When we judge others, we are in truth judging ourselves, and the effects of these judgments manifest in the world we see around us. Our anger creates a world that seems to justify anger. Our sadness creates a world that appears to validate our sadness. Our hatred generates a world that gives us every reason to hate. And our fear creates a world that we see that gives us every reason to be afraid. All the time completely unaware that what we are seeing in the world, and therefore within ourselves, is only what we have wanted to see and what we have asked to keep as real. Yet all perception occurs within the mind, not outside of it. The eyes do not truly see, for they were made not to see. They are lifeless instruments, and to understand that the body itself does not live, it is the spirit and the soul that is alive, temporarily inhabiting the body. Without the spirit, the body is inert, decays, and ultimately returns to the earth. Seeing is only meaningful to what lives. What is without life does not see. Our eyes were made to perceive and to not see, yet our minds, being a part of the mind of our Creator, was made to see. The human eyes can only see about 0.0035% of the known electromagnetic light spectrum. Therefore, our seeing is really only imagining in darkness, just like seeing within a dream. Without true seeing, we lack true knowledge, and therefore true understanding, which ultimately means we are judging everything from a place of not knowing. Our judgments are the barriers to seeing reality, a reality that is beautiful because it is kind, being created by love. Because we are all created to create, our judgments are our will, and so they show us a world that we have asked to see. The function of the world is to give us an experience of ourselves that we have asked for. When we keep asking for what will hurt us, yet we are unaware of what we are doing, we keep seeing a world of confusion which translates to pain. Knowledge and intelligence reside within the mind, which infuses the body with purpose and direction. The body, when seen clearly, is much more like a car, a vehicle created by something intelligent that is beyond itself. A car is not intelligent, it merely responds as it was asked to do to the desires of the driver. Likewise, the body is inert, without its own intelligence, and the life force that animates it is the life force of our spirit. Any intelligence we think we see in the body is only the intelligence within the mind. Some learn to idolize their cars because they see value in them, just as we can learn to idolize the body because we have learned to see value in it. Yet a car without a driver to appreciate it is nothing more than a heap of metal and plastic, destined to decay. Similarly, the body without the spirit is but flesh and bone, so devoid of value that when the life force has left it, it is buried as valueless deep within the ground that it may never be seen again. No one truly understands that body because it was designed not to be understood. If the body were fully understood, it would lose its perceived value to us and be recognized for what it is. However, the spirit, being life, is glorious. It is eternal and full of light. for it originates from the divine mind of our Creator. The Spirit exists forever within the mind of our Creator, just as our own thoughts never leave our own minds. This unity within the divine makes all life eternally safe and eternally loved. In contrast, the body represents the experience of separation from God's mind, which is the light of heaven. The body perceives a different reality, one born of darkness and dreams. It projects this dream outward, creating the world we see. The body itself is without love, and though we may look for value and love within it, we are always left disappointed because one cannot find something where it does not exist. Love, being eternal, is a part of life and can only be understood where it has its only meaning. No one claims to love and value a lifeless body. In fact, it is so devoid of love, when life has departed it, it even becomes frightening to look upon. When we identify ourselves with the body, we mistake the dream for reality. All thoughts stemming from this state are disconnected from true reality, constructing a world of illusion based on separation. Just as we are unaware of ourselves as the dreamer within a sleeping dream, we remain unaware of our role in creating the world we perceive. This state of forgetfulness is temporary. Eventually, everyone leaves their body because dreams cannot last. The light of reality will eventually dissolve all the illusions that we have made in darkness, the ones we hold as true when we believe we are the identity within the dream. The end of the body is not death, for what is without life cannot die. The spirit that lives is completely unaffected by the end of the body and the end of the dreaming world. The body is a dream, and when the dream ends, the light of reality will return to our minds, which is the light of truth. The light is the love of our divine mind, the essence of our Creator, and the meaning of Christ. We are all part of this light, eternally united with the Creator, eternally safe and eternally loved. When we can bring our awareness to grasp this very simple truth about ourselves, all our confusions about ourselves and the world become answered as one, and so all our suffering too becomes answered as one. All sickness, which is confusion, is healed within us, and all pain loses its hold upon us. We ultimately hold the power of our Creator within us. With the awareness of this truth within ourselves, all powerlessness simply dissolves into the nothingness from which it came. The simple truth of who we are is simple because our oneness is a wholeness. To not know oneself is the cause of confusion, being the separation from oneness, which is only the denial of reality. To not know reality is to be confused about who we are. Depression, anxiety, psychological disorders and physical sickness are signs that the world we are making from fear, that we are holding on to within our minds, is not serving us and is not understandable, because fear itself is an illusion. Once it is seen for what it is, it loses its power to deceive us. The way to get through these challenging emotions and mental hell is to decide that it is the truth one wants, and only the truth. One does not want illusions to be true. Deciding to see things without judgment is but asking for the truth to be given to us, and to learn to see as we were created to see. Our minds are still connected to the unified mind of our Creator. and so we still have the ability to communicate and see with this higher knowledge. To commune with truth burns away all fears in the fire of love. Our eyes are limits on seeing, but true seeing is done within the mind. The power of seeing wholly, instead of seeing through thoughts made in darkness, lifts us out of suffering. It lifts us into the light of our true being. Depression, psychosis, sickness and disease are all forms of suffering, and suffering is but the call of the divine to awaken from the dream of fear and death. When the world has become sick, and being normal in this world is but to be well conditioned to sickness, then the only way out is through suffering. In a sick world, suffering is the one thing that brings about the willingness for change, and change within a sick dreaming world is the one thing that carries the blessings of our Creator upon it.